Yusuf was known as the voice of reason in his community. His wisdom, eloquence, and sharp intellect earned him a reputation that few could rival. Whenever disputes arose, people turned to him for resolution. He was respected, admired, and even envied, but behind the veil of his public persona was a man burdened by restlessness. At night, when the noise of the world subsided and Yusuf was left alone with his thoughts, a strange emptiness gripped his heart. Despite his accomplishments and respect, he felt hollow. It was as if something essential was missing from his life. Yusuf had no answers, only questions that refused to leave him. One evening, Yusuf found himself walking aimlessly until he arrived at the edge of a river. The moon's soft glow danced on the water's surface, and the sound of the flowing stream filled the silence around him. He sat on a large rock, staring into the rippling waters, hoping for clarity. Suddenly, he heard footsteps. An old man with a serene face and a walking stick approached him. Yusuf recognized him as Ibrahim, a reclusive elder known for his wisdom. Without a word, Ibrahim sat beside him and looked at the river. After a moment, he handed Yusuf a folded piece of paper. Yusuf hesitated but unfolded the paper. Written in delicate handwriting were the words, "Surely, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest." Yusuf looked up to ask the elder what it meant, but Ibrahim was gone, disappearing as suddenly as he had appeared. Yusuf stared at the verse, his heart inexplicably moved. Could this be the answer to the void in his heart? Determined to uncover the meaning behind the elder's words, Yusuf decided to embark on a journey of self-reflection. He resolved to observe silence for 7 days. His intention wasn't just to stop speaking but to silence the noise within, his constant thoughts, judgments, and distractions. He sought clarity and peace. On the first day, Yusuf struggled. His mind was like a storm, filled with memories of arguments, regrets, and plans. He realized how much he relied on talking to distract himself from his inner turmoil. The verse given by the elder echoed in his mind, urging him to find solace in silence and remembrance. That night, Yusuf opened the Quran and read the context of the verse. The chapter spoke of the greatness of Allah's creation, his control over the universe, and the peace that comes from surrendering to him. Yusuf felt a spark of hope. Perhaps silence wasn't just an absence of words, but a pathway to something deeper. By the third day, Yusuf began to notice the world differently. Without the need to speak, he became a keen observer. He saw the pain in a shopkeeper's eyes, the forced laughter of a young boy, and the gratitude of a beggar who received a loaf of bread. These details had always been there, but his own voice had drowned them out. A friend visited Yusuf that evening, sharing a personal problem. Yusuf listened intently, nodding but offering no advice. To his surprise, his friend thanked him, saying, "You've helped me more than you know." Yusuf hadn't spoken a single word, yet his silence had offered comfort. He realized that sometimes people don't need words, they need to be heard. As the week progressed, Yusuf's silence became both a challenge and a revelation. He encountered moments of temptation, especially when he overheard a neighbor spreading false rumors about him. His ego screamed for justice, but he restrained himself, recalling the Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon him, saying, "Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent." That evening, Yusuf sat by the river again. He noticed how the water adapted to obstacles, flowing around rocks without resistance. It reminded him of how silence could diffuse conflicts and transform hostility into peace. On the 6th day, Yusuf encountered a man notorious for his sharp tongue and arrogance. The man taunted Yusuf, mocking his newfound quietness. In the past, Yusuf would have responded with sharp wit, but now he remained calm. The man's words lost their power, and he eventually walked away, puzzled by Yusuf's unshakable demeanor. Later that night, Yusuf reflected on the Prophet's, peace be upon him, example of patience and restraint. He remembered the story of how the Prophet endured insults in Mecca with grace, never retaliating in anger. Yusuf felt a deep sense of gratitude for this timeless lesson. By the 7th day, Yusuf experienced a profound shift. His mind was no longer a battlefield of thoughts. He felt a deep connection to Allah, a sense of tranquility that eluded him before. He realized that silence had not only quieted his external world, but had also brought clarity to his heart. As he walked through the market, he noticed a boy struggling to carry a heavy basket. Without a word, Yusuf helped him. The boy's smile was reward enough. Yusuf understood that actions often speak louder than words and that kindness needs no explanation. On the 8th day, Yusuf decided to visit the elder who had given him the note. He found Ibrahim sitting under a tree, reciting Quran. Yusuf thanked him and shared his journey, expressing how silence had transformed his life. Ibrahim smiled and said, "Silence is not merely the absence of sound, my son. It is a state of presence. It is in silence that we hear the whispers of our soul and the call of our Creator. Remember, the Quran begins with the word Iqra, to read. But we cannot read the signs of Allah without first silencing the noise within." Yusuf returned to his life, but he was a changed man. He spoke less but with intention. His words carried weight, and his presence brought calm to those around him. People noticed the change and sought his counsel not just for his wisdom, but for the peace he radiated. One evening, as he sat by the river, Yusuf thought about his journey. He realized that silence had taught him the greatest lesson of all: to trust in Allah, to let go of control, and to find peace in surrender. The verse given by Ibrahim became his guiding light. Surely, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Yusuf's story became a reminder to all who knew him that sometimes the loudest answers come from the quietest places. So, subscribe to True Sparks for inspiring stories and timeless wisdom that ignite your inner peace.